All right, I think it's time, and I also figure the sooner I start, the more time we have for questions later on. So this session is called Essential Knowledge for Drupal Beginners. I hope to guide you through the jungle that is called Drupal and make it possible for you to understand and survive in this jungle. My name is Johan Falk, I live in Sweden. I used to be employed at the great company Node1 in Sweden. Now I'm studying to be a teacher. More on that later on. This session will be a quest. We'll go on an adventure. So you better bring out your sword and helmet and stuff. And I will guide you, help you survive in this Drupal world. The quest is divided into 5 different sub-quests. The first one is about understanding this Drupal thing from a perspective. Second thing is some kind of essential knowledge about the Drupal technology, the software that is Drupal. After that, we're going to look at the Drupal community, what that is and how to understand it. Then I'm going to talk a bit about how Drupal work is organized. And finally, I'll give you 5 tips on how to get Drupal people to love you, which of course is what all of this is about. Okay, so who am I to start with? I'm a Drupal trainer. Most people in the Drupal world know me from the screencasts I do. A quick poll, how many here have seen screencasts that I have recorded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay, a few, that's nice. I've written a few Drupal books and I do Drupal training. As a kind of professional right now, I'm studying to become a teacher. I'm going to be a teacher this summer and then I'm going to teach math and physics, and my plan is to be a kick-ass teacher. We'll see how that works out. But now we're going on a quest. Are you ready? I'll take that as a yes. Okay. The first quest we have is understanding Drupal from a perspective. A good starting point is to ask who uses Drupal. And it turns out quite a few people use Drupal. And one of them you might know, he's called Mr. Obama. He has this blog of his where he posts stuff he wants the nation to know about. He uses Drupal. Here's another company or organization using Drupal, the Grammys. They switched to Drupal, I think it's 2 years ago now, 2 Grammy Awards since. And that was the first time the Grammy.com survived the onslaught during the awards. That's kind of fun. Both these sites are kind of from one publisher to a lot of people, one-way communication. If we look at this site instead, The Economist, one I think of the world's best news magazines. They have switched to Drupal because they wanted to have more interaction with people on their site. So they made a pretty spectacular transition to Drupal where they switched parts of the site and made a like soft transition to Drupal. A really interesting project. It has a great write-up on Drupal.org if you're interested. They use Drupal as well. We have this site, the Twitter developer community. This is much more communication between people rather than a broadcast channel. They use Drupal as well. This is just a few of the sites using Drupal, of course. Since I'm from Sweden, I also want to mention IKEA. They use Drupal. And this is a community site, a lot of people posting content, discussing with each other, very rich in media as well. So Drupal is used in many different environments for many different purposes. The question, of course, is why people choose Drupal. And it turns out there are many reasons for this, and one of them, I think the most important one, is that Drupal is flexible. Can you hear me? Is too much sound bouncing around? Should I turn down? Yeah, can back off a bit. Is this better? Okay. Drupal is flexible. You can do many different kinds of websites with Drupal. And that makes it possible to use Drupal for your project right now, probably. But more importantly, it makes it possible to use Drupal in the future as well. If you build a site for your hotel, and then later on you want to add a blog to it, and then later on you want to add some kind of, I don't know, web shop or something, you can still use Drupal. You're not locked in using only one kind of technology. Drupal can do a lot of different things, and that's really powerful. One of the other really big advantages with Drupal is that Drupal gives a short time to market. From this time when you start doing something, start planning something, and you actually have it done, is short with Drupal, relatively short with Drupal. That is because Drupal is some kind of standardized framework that, and You use completed modules, add-on products like plugins for Drupal that add new functionality, and they are still standardized, so you can use standardized components but tailor them to your needs and have a site made pretty quickly that suits your needs. All right, let's move on a bit and see what else we have that is good with Drupal. Yeah, Drupal is open source. For most people, that means that Drupal is free. There is no license fees for Drupal. You can download and start using Drupal right away and not pay $1. That's nice. Drupal is also free as in freedom, which for most people working with Drupal is really important. When you download Drupal and start using it, it's your code. You can do whatever you want with it. Compared to other proprietary systems, where you basically rent the software. You're not allowed to do changes, you're not allowed to continue to use it if you don't continue to pay the provider. And open source also allows you to customize the thing you have if need should arise. There are many advantages to this. This is probably the thing that most people would say is the best thing with Drupal. Drupal has an awesome community. As you will see here, and probably have already seen at the conference, Drupal consists of a lot of great people. When you talk about open source software, you often want to look at the community to judge how solid the product is, the open source product is. Because the community is kind of the corporation or the company that maintains this product. And if the community is good, then you can rely on the product better. Drupal is known for having a really good community, an active and vibrant community. Okay, that much about the good things about Drupal. What about the downsides then? Well, you might hear that Drupal is slow. And I would say it's kind of true. But it's true for any framework that you have of a certain size. You cannot we cannot install a website and expect it to be able to receive 3,000 visitors in a minute, for example, logged in visitors or something. What's important though is that you can adjust it and tailor it to be able to manage this. And Drupal allows this, as many of the large-scale web publishing systems do. This is another thing that's said about Drupal. Drupal is difficult to learn. I'm a Drupal trainer, so I know that a lot of people think this. And I would say, yes, it's true, but again, Drupal is a really large and complex product. It's a professional-sized web publishing system. If you download it and expect that you can start using it right away and understand all the parts of it, you have to think again, I would say. That's not saying that there are things in Drupal that could be made easier. That's very true, but you shouldn't expect, well, any system of this size will be complex and difficult to learn. Here's another complaint about Drupal. Drupal is ugly. And I would say that's pretty often true. Drupal has traditionally been created and maintained by geeks, like super geeks, that think that this user interface and things isn't really important. The important thing is that we have rock-solid APIs, because that's cool. That has some goods and bads to it. The bad thing is that Drupal might look like not very pretty sometimes, but the upsides is that it's rock solid when it comes to functionality. Drupal is one of the best CMSs on the planet because of all the geeks that have been working on creating Drupal. There are efforts on making Drupal more pretty and especially making more easy to use, and it's going on. And that, my friends, is the first quest finished. We are awarded with some kind of bottle that we can store and keep liquids in. This is the Drupal bottle. And that brings us to the second quest, the Drupal technology knowledge. First part I want to look at here is who works with Drupal and how could you possibly fit into this if you want to. There are, if you look at it, 3 different roles and 3 different kinds of people working with Drupal, and then there are a number of other ones as well. The first role is called the site builder. These are people building Drupal without writing code. Let's have a closer look at this. Site builders create Drupal sites, clicking around and building site functionality. And this way, they can make like 80–90% of all the functionality you need on a site. And this is like all the sites you can find on the internet. You can do without coding to 80–90% because of the way Drupal is built. If you want to be a site builder, it requires curiosity because there are a lot of different modules, plugins to learn to Drupal. And if you want to be really good at being a site builder, then you have to have good knowledge of these modules that you can add to Drupal. That's the first role. The second role is the coder, often called the developer. I don't like to call this the developer because everyone working with building a Drupal site is actually a developer, so I call it the coder instead. So what do the coders do? Well, they create a site functionality that the site builders cannot do. They write integration stuff and they write glue code to make Drupal plugins, Drupal modules talk to each other. They do a lot of things like integrating with external systems and much more. If you want to be a coder, a Drupal coder, then you have to know some PHP, the language that Drupal is written in. If you want to be really good at coding for Drupal, then you have to be good at knowing the APIs that Drupal relies on, that Drupal provides. Okay, and then there's the third role of the people working with Drupal, the themer. Themers have a very important role in Drupal. They make Drupal look good. And they make Drupal sites be more useful and user-friendly, and that's, of course, very, very useful. They not only make the sites look the way the client wants, but also have talents to know what the actual site users expect and want to have. That's kind of important as well. If you want to be a themer, then you have to know some basic front-end technology like HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. Good stuff. jQuery, if you know about that, is also very good in Drupal. If you want to be really good at theming, then you need to not only know these front-end technologies, but also some of the internal APIs and structures of Drupal, because they will be useful when adjusting Drupal's appearance. Usability research I've listed here as well. Very important if you want to have a site work properly. And then there are the other roles. We listed 3 so far. I'm going to repeat them. There are called site builders, coders, and themers, and then there are the others. These are roles that appear in basically any web project or software project. You have designers, you have project managers, you have client managers, you have editors, you have server and backend and database people, and more. These are not Drupal specific, but they appear in more or less every project that you find. And oftentimes, depending on the size of the Drupal shop and Drupal company, these are combined in different people. So one person can be both a themer and a site builder. Someone is a coder, a site builder, and a database guru, and so on. But these are basically the roles you have when working with Drupal. And that means the quest is half done. We got the bug squashing hammer, not bad. But we're not done with this quest yet. We have some more Drupal tech knowledge to achieve. And that is Drupal lingo, understanding what Drupal geeks talk about. And I'm going to learn you like 7 words or something. Hang on. First ones are these. Core. When people talk about core, they mean Drupal core, and that is the default Drupal thing you get when you download Drupal from Drupal.org. It has some basics functionality. And then you have contributed modules or Contrib modules. These are the plugins you download and extend Drupal's functionality and alter the functionality so you can make cool stuff happen on your site. Finally, you have themes as well that you dress up your site in to make it look good and behave in a nice way. All right, core, Contrib modules, and themes. Then we have 3 more words. Nodes is a word. A node is a word that you'll hear pretty often. Node is another word for content. A piece of content that has its own page is a node in Drupal. We have content types in Drupal, which is pretty important to know about. These are like templates you have when creating content on a site. Finally, you have fields that are used on these content types to add things like file uploads or tags or extra text fields or things like that. Very useful, and they have been quite improved in Drupal 7, which is the current version of Drupal. Then we have one more word, which is my favorite one. It's kind of a buzzword when it comes to Drupal 7, and that is entity. When this was introduced, it was called a thingy at the first discussions. So if you want to appear knowledgeable about Drupal, you can say thingy instead of entity, and people will start smiling at you. This is a new big thing in Drupal 7 and allows Drupal to be, well, it extends Drupal and makes Drupal more generalized, so you can manage content and other information on your site in the same way. Very useful. It's kind of the big thing for Drupal 7. And I think that's it. Yeah, the second quest is completed and we have been awarded some kind of phrase book. That's nice. Let's see what we got here. Quest number 3, understanding the Drupal community. This is, I think, the most important part of learning to understand Drupal. And understanding this means that we should understand that Drupal is a collaborative project. We have many, many people working together on the same project with the same goals. It could look, for example, like this. This is from the Copenhagen conference 1.5 years ago in Europe. This is, I don't know, 1,500 people, and I could say that these are more or less all my colleagues in one way or another. They work on the same project, share the same passion as I do, working with Drupal and making Drupal better. And I could more or less stop here, because this is like the heart of Drupal. We have a lot of people doing things together with the same goal. But I want to continue anyway. The Drupal community has some unwritten rules that is good to know about. And first one is everyone is welcome. You can join the Drupal community and people will say, welcome, good to have you here. And you're not only welcome, but you're also welcome to contribute and do work. There's a lot of things that should be done with Drupal, and we know in the Drupal community that everyone is good at something. And I heard someone say that the smartest person in the room might be the one who just entered. And if we as a community don't realize that the people coming here can be really good and really helpful, be a great asset, then Drupal as a project will die. And I think that's why the Drupal community is so warm and welcoming to people. Yeah. One more thing, Drupal is sometimes called a doocracy, meaning the more things you do, the more influence you have over things. So if you show that you can do something and not only complain that things don't work, then people start listening to you and accept what you say. If you're interested in more things about the Drupal community and some written rules about Drupal community, then you can go to drupal.org/DCOC, Drupal Code of Conduct, for some more information. Basically, it says that we should be considerate. If you want to know more about the Drupal community and getting involved in some way, then Drupal conferences like this one is a really good place. There are 2 Drupal conferences, DrupalCons, every year, one in Europe and one in North America. They're planning to introduce a 3rd Drupal conference in South America or Asia, but it hasn't been implemented yet. There are a lot of local Drupal meetups in your city or your state or country or whatever. If you go to groups.drupal.org, you can probably find a local Drupal group that you can join and find out more about this. The best way, I think, when it comes to learning Drupal people is to go chatting with them on IRC. It's an ancient chat program, chat protocol that you can use, and you'll find Drupal people online at all times on all days. And if you want to know more about this, go to drupal.org/IRC. Finally, you can post in forums, most especially groups.drupal.org. Find a forum or a group that fits your interests and join it and start discussing. You'll find great people and they will help you with your problems. More good ideas are found at drupal.org/contribute if you want to get involved in the Drupal community. Whew. Oh, yeah, and that means the 3rd quest is complete. This is an example of what happens when you have really smart people coming together to do a great project like Drupal. You have funny things happening like Drupal hats. You can also have things like Drupal socks happening, or you can have things like Drupal lanterns, Drupal pumpkins turning up at Halloween. Or this is maybe my favorite, the Drupal suit. It doesn't show very well. It's a full body suit you can wear. It doesn't smell very, very nice in there now because it's kind of warm, but you can still wear it. And that's it. Whoa. Quest number 4. I'm moving forward in quite a high speed, right? what I do usually. How Drupal work is organized, right? We have thousands of people working with Drupal, and I mean literally thousands. For Drupal 7, the current version of Drupal core, there were more than 1,000 people actively contributing code to Drupal core. And that is like a crazy amount of people to organize. The way Drupal community does this is that we have two persons, usually two persons, who have commit access to this Drupal core. They decide what goes in and what not goes in. They are the gatekeepers for Drupal core. But then we have 1,000 people or more actually doing code, suggesting patches. It's called suggestion for improvements to Drupal core and changes. And more than these 1,000 people, like 10,000 people maybe, are discussing these changes and contributing their ideas to Drupal core in discussion in their issue queues for Drupal core. For Drupal 8, the next version, we had something new introduced called initiatives. These are large-scale changes to Drupal core that cannot really be handled in a single issue, so they branched off to form initiatives instead, and these have initiative leaders and so on, but you will not see very much of those for some time at least. Yeah, then release cycles. You might have, well, some of you might wonder, Drupal 8, what about that? Well, should I start using Drupal 8 instead of Drupal 7? Well, the official announcement when it comes to Drupal 8 is that it's ready when it's ready, and I would not wait for Drupal 8 at this point. Start using Drupal 7. It has been said that Drupal 8 should be released 18 months after the plateau of productivity. This morning, Dries, the founder of Drupal, you could call him, said something else. I should really update these slides. He said that August 2013 was the target release for Drupal 8. Let's cross our fingers and hope that that works, but still, it will be released when it's ready. Yeah, that's about Drupal core. Then we have all the contributed modules or contributed projects that are not only modules, but also themes and installation profiles and translations and everything. These are managed in a way similar to Drupal core. Excuse me. And anyone is allowed to start a new project in what's called a sandbox, and then you are the maintainer, the king of that project, and can do whatever you like with that. You can appoint new maintainers and have co-maintainers. You can leave the project to someone else and so on. You get your own issue queue. You can start working with issues and have patches and bug reports and things in. And eventually, if you're doing this in a good way, you can apply for some kind of driver's license or something, saying that I don't want this project to be a sandbox. I want this to be a real project that is listed and searchable on Drupal.org so people can download and use it. And then you go through some kind of review process, and then you can do that. And that's it. I want to mention that Drupal has no official certification. There is no, or if you find someone who says, I'm a certified Drupal developer, they got that paper from some phony person. There is no official Drupal certification. There has been a lot of discussions about this, and there are pros and cons about this. The pro is that there will appear Drupal certifications. If the Drupal community don't give out certifications, companies will start doing that, bringing up their own certifications, and that would be bad. Also, if we have certifications, we'll lessen the probability that people who don't really know Drupal sell Drupal services, and then clients to those people will think that Drupal is bad, and that's really no good. The downside, though, of having certifications is that people will start, well, developers, Drupal people, will start focus on the certifications rather than the Drupal project and the Drupal community, and that will eventually perhaps, well, I think, and a lot of other people think, that that will make the Drupal community less valuable and eventually also make Drupal worse. That about that. I think we're done with the fourth quest. Wow, we've got some stamina potion here that will help us on our fifth quest, fifth and final quest. Wow, this is going quick. 5 ways to make Drupal people love you. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. First one, say thank you. Pretty often people just hear complaints, this doesn't work. If you say, hey, this works, thank you very much, people will notice you and eventually they will start to love you. Number 2, you can help out in the issue queues. If you have a module you're using in Drupal, or you're using Drupal core or whatever, there are always issues in the issue queues that are easy to solve. Someone's saying, hey, I don't know how to install this, or where do I find this configuration screen, or how do I do this, or something. Or you can just find duplicate issues and say that this has been asked over here and there are some good answers to it already. If you start doing that, if you do that once a week for 4 weeks, I promise that the module maintainer will notice you, take note of you, and maybe he or she will start love you. Number 3, this is a good one, I think. Work with documentation. Even if you don't know how to code or write a theme or something, you can help with documentation. If you just managed to get Drupal installed, you struggled for 7 hours, and finally you got this Drupal thing going, then you are in a perfect position to tell others how to do it. People who have been using Drupal for 4.5 years and installed Drupal in their sleep are not really fit to write documentation about how to install Drupal. You are. Drupal.org/documentation is a good entry point for this. This is my favorite. Help others. If someone has a question, if someone gets stuck somewhere or just want, well, some guidance, someone to hold in their hand, if you help them, you help the Drupal community, and people will take note of you, and they will start to love you. Finally, this is for hardcore people who want to do cool stuff and become heroes. You can visit the core office hours. There's a person here called XJM. I don't know her real name, but I know she's called XJM online. She manages what's called core office hours, helping people making Drupal core better. There are tons of issues in the Drupal core issue queue, and there are always issues that you can help out with, and she will help you help out with these issues. If you're interested in this, go to drupal.org/node/124285 This is what's sometimes referred to as a geek number. 124285 And what do you know? That's it. Finished the 5th quest. We got Drupal. Yeah. Thank you. That was half an hour. When I did this before, it took 45 minutes. That means we have a lot of questions, a lot of time for questions. That's great. I hope I can answer some of them. How many here are new to Drupal? How many here have used Drupal before? How many here have not used Drupal before? How many here are on their first Drupal conference? Great. How many here have installed Drupal? Wow. Wow. Downloading on VM definitely counts. That sounds like, that's geeky enough for me. All right, so yeah. Do we have questions? Yes, thank you. Okay, so the question if what kind of platform you use to run Drupal. Drupal usually runs on Linux and Apache and PHP, and MySQL database, but it can be run on a number of different platforms. It runs on Windows and Mac and Linux, no problem. If you have some other server software that can manage PHP, that's fine. Drupal has support for a number of different databases, and that's also fine. It has limited support for non-relational databases, if you know about those. They're really cool. They are wicked fast, but they don't work 100% with Drupal. So you have combined with some standard database, like MySQL. Yes? Oh, that's the big question for me. Am I giving up on Drupal now that I'm becoming a teacher? I don't know. I have realized that I can't have 2 passions in my head at the same time, and I'm really passionate about teaching. And when teaching becomes my daily job, then I don't think I'll have time to cram out 5 screencasts every week. That's what I think. Oh, is there a special name for the Drupal icon? Yes, there is. It's DrupalCon. Yeah, it's very funny. DrupalCon, like Drupal icon. Not to be confused with DrupalCon, which we are at right now. Huh. What do we want to do now? We have a lot of time left. Did we have a question? Yes. Of the other stuff, sorry. Okay, so apart from just installing Drupal, what do you need to know to get started? Git and bash and terminal. Okay. So this is a good question, and it's kind of embarrassing that one of the most difficult things with Drupal is to just get it started. I mean, when you start using Drupal and start being a site builder, you can do a lot of cool things with very little effort, and it's kind of easy to do it. But getting Drupal started is tricky. And there are tools for getting Drupal started just with like 5 clicks or something. One of them is called the Drupal the Acquia Drupal stack installer or something like that. A good thing, it sets up a server on your computer, installs Drupal, and everything just works. There are online hostings that provide Drupal installation. You don't need to know how to use a terminal or use version control system or things like that to use Drupal. It helps. If you want to be a Drupal coder, then you definitely want to learn things like Git and using a terminal and what's called drush in Drupal, a command line tool. But to get started, get an online service to install Drupal for you and get going. That's my advice. Question over here. Oh, what would I recommend when it comes to learning to use a module and know which modules to use? Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I would recommend failing a large number of times. That's a really efficient but also painful way of learning. A better way is, well, talk to Drupal people. Talk to Drupal people. That's the ultimate solution, I guess, and trying things out. There are books available that are good. There are some books available that are less good. Don't read those. If you compare 2 different modules, I would go for the one that has the most, the largest user base. That's the quick way of comparing 2 modules. Don't be afraid to use modules that has a lot of bug reports or issues in their issue queue. That doesn't mean the module is bad, it means that it's used a lot. And that's always good. What should you focus on when you want to learn Drupal? Oh, this is a really good question. I could kind of show you a path for learning Drupal. Well, the first thing you want to learn when you learn Drupal, let's actually show you this. Let's see, skill sets. We had a project I'm involved in working with something called skill sets. Let's see if I can have this one shown. Show image like this. This is some kind of skill and level up map for using Drupal. And there are different kinds of skills you can have depending on what kind of Drupal work you want to do. But some things you always need to learn. Like you need to learn how to manage content on a Drupal site, regardless of what you want to do. Even if you're like a project manager, a client contact or something, you need to know the basic stuff about Drupal because you interact with Drupal in one way or another. After that, I would focus on site building, definitely. A lot of people, especially those who know how to write PHP, they go directly to coding for Drupal, and that's a bad choice. You'll waste tons of hours that way. Learn site building first. After that, you can branch off. Either you start learning how to theme Drupal, and that's great. You learn how to code for Drupal, and you know that there are modules available that solves most of your problems, but you can extend these modules and make them better with your coding. Or you go into advanced site building, making impossible things happen on your Drupal site without a single line of code, and that's kind of cool. That's what I do mostly. And then it expands and expands. First threshold is learning basic site building. Go for that, and that requires in turn that you learn how to manage content on your site. Second threshold is learning the basic coding in Drupal, because when you know that, then you can do a lot of other things as well. And the geek number for this issue is, content here is 172434. All right. Oh, and this is on groups.drupal.org. Yeah, okay. Search for Drupal skill sets and you'll find this. More questions? Okay, the major differences between Drupal 7 and Drupal 6. Drupal 7 is better. In real life, one important difference is that Drupal 6 is closer to end of life. The Drupal community releases security updates and things for 2 Drupal releases. Now Drupal 6 and Drupal 7. Once Drupal 8 comes out, Drupal 7 has reached end of life. And that's, 6, thank you, okay, thank you. When it comes to technical implementations, then Drupal 7 is more capable of doing large-scale stuff out of the box. You can have multiple databases in Drupal 7. You can have other kinds of databases than the MySQL database. From a site-building perspective, Drupal 7 has these entities, the thingies, that allows you to attach fields and extend the information structure on a gazillion of different ways on your Drupal site. In Drupal 6, that's not really possible in the same way. Yeah. Is there an easy way to upgrade from 6 to 7? Yes and no. Drupal core has a simple upgrade path from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7. It's like clicking a few buttons and then it's done, more or less. If you have a lot of modules installed on your site, then these modules must have an upgrade path as well. If they don't, then you will have some pain with it. If you have written a lot of custom code on your site and maybe even hacked core, oh my god, I should mention this, you should not hack Drupal core. If you hack Drupal core, that means changing the code in Drupal core, then a kitten dies. So if you see, it's true, there are images proving this, it's horrible. Oh my god. Don't kill kittens. If you kill kittens and hack Drupal core, have a lot of custom code on your Drupal 6 site, then you will have an upgrade hell. And that's no fun. That's one of the reasons that site building is so important in Drupal. If you use existing modules, the big, much used modules, then you are sure to have nice upgrade paths for the next version. And you are sure that the modules will work together in a nice way and life will be better and no kittens die. Yes? Any good Drupal host for small personal websites? I know, this might sound like commercials now. I know that, no, I don't know. That's the quick answer. I do know, however, that there's a Drupal host called Web Enabled that allows you to do fun stuff with Drupal with little or no effort. They're good at managing Drupal. That, well, I'm going to stop there or I'll be fined or something. Yep. Any good Drupal books? Yeah. Okay, good books about Drupal. I would like to recommend a book that I wrote myself. It's called Drupal 7, The Essentials. It covers Drupal core and the essential modules you should know about. I'm a Swedish guy, and we didn't have time to proofread that book before the last American conference, or before the London DrupalCon. So the language is kind of not perfect, and the reviews on Amazon is like either this is a 5-star despite its language, or this is a 4-star, but I would give it 5 if it was a better language. It's good content, and I'm going to do some more commercials. If you go to dev.node1.se, dev is for developers, like people in the Drupal community. Node1 is the Swedish Drupal company I'm at, and .se is for Sweden. Then you will find something called Learning Library. This is a collection, tons of screencasts and things that will help you get started with Drupal. There is a screencast series here. Let's scroll down a bit. Huh? English. It's in English. All is in English. Well, yeah, I think everything is in English. Now this size here isn't really nice. I think this is responsive, so if I scroll it down. Okay, never mind. There's a screencast here called Learning Drupal 7 or something like that. That's a very good starting point. And then just go on from there. Oh, there's a screencast here is going on right now called 4 Weeks of Drupal that contains a full Drupal course that I did for some students. 4 weeks is like crazy amount of Drupal things. And I did everything in screencast, and you can watch it here for free. Good stuff. That replaces more or less this book at Amazon that I bought, so now I can't sell any of my books anymore. But I want to recommend another book as well, a book called Drupal 7 Module Development. That, I think, is the best book when it comes to writing, coding for Drupal. Good stuff, but learn site building first. There's another good book called The Definitive Guide to Drupal 7. It's like this thick, and use it as a reference, but don't read it cover to cover because you'll die of age. Yes? Okay, what learning resources do I miss on the web? I actually miss structure. I think there are tons of good blog posts and screencasts and podcasts and whatnot for learning Drupal. But it's so difficult to find them. It's difficult to know what's good and bad and things.
I heard a rumor that you might be working on a site.
You've heard rumors that I've been working on a site to aggregate this. Yeah, it's true. Who told you that? Okay, cool. When is that going to be? Well, I don't know. It's ready when it's ready. Yes? Drupal 7 module development. Drupal 7 module development. It's the best Drupal, perhaps the best Drupal book I've seen. I know that a company called Lullabot is working on a Drupal 7 version of what's called Using Drupal. The Drupal 6 version of that was very good. So it might be very good in Drupal 7 as well, but I haven't read it yet. Yes?
I just wanted to know about screencasts.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that statement. He wants to give me an applause, was that it? Well, thank you, thank you. It's a privilege to be able to give away Drupal documentation for free. Drupal is a passion for me, and I'm so happy that I can share that passion. Yes?
So +1 for
Okay, we have a +1 here. +2. Yeah. Pro Drupal development.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a book as well. Pro Drupal development for Drupal 6 and Drupal 5 are excellent. I'll stop there.
I've certainly
Okay, that was not the problems I had with it. Well, it lacks too many things, the Drupal 7 version. It doesn't cover the entities, for example, and that's kind of crazy. Having a Drupal 7 book that doesn't cover entities is crazy. That was, now I'm making bad publicity here. The book is called Pro Drupal 7 Development. It's a good book in many aspects, not all. Sorry to the authors. Yeah. Oh, a site that shouldn't be written in Drupal. Yeah, I can definitely give you examples of that. We had at Node 1 people coming to us saying, we want to build this campaign site that we want to have up in 1 week. Well, we want to have it up and running in 1 month, and it should be running for 9 months, and when you shut it down, you should have this content on it, and that's it. You could use Drupal for that, but it would be overkill. Oh, okay. Okay, so not only the overkill scenario, but something else. Something that Drupal couldn't do or isn't fit to do. It is difficult to have Drupal run well when you have a lot of logged in users. If you have 2,000 logged in, you wouldn't want to build Facebook with Drupal. That's a bad, well, it's really difficult. Regardless of which framework you use, it will be difficult. Oh, here goes the computer. I think generally, if you have a web shop that has talents in a particular framework, like if you're really good at using WordPress and you get a job that you know that you can solve in WordPress and you're considering using Drupal, use the talent you have. It will cost a lot to learn things in Drupal, and the first 3 or 4 projects you make in Drupal, you will not be very good, because you will learn so much on the way. I don't really know of any kind of website that wouldn't work well with Drupal. That might be because I'm only working with Drupal and people who come to Node 1 want Drupal. I bet there are cases where Drupal isn't a sensible solution, but I can't really give an example, sorry. Yeah. Okay, why is it difficult to have many logged in users on a Drupal site? That has to do with caching. When you have a lot of people visiting a website, you don't want every visitor to make the database do heavy queries and stuff. You want to have things prepared so you can send it back quickly. That's what's happening with Grammys.com, for example. You have thousands of people coming every second to it. And then you have a nice little layer above, on top of Drupal that just sends dump HTML back to the visitors, and it's wicked fast. But if people are logged in, you pretty often need to customize small parts of the page, and then you need some database queries, and you'll have to hit the actual Drupal installation for every visitor and every page request, and that becomes heavy eventually. There are ways of solving that. If you are using a module called Page Manager together with panels, usually, you can do cool and very granular caching. So you can solve that with Drupal, but it is tricky. It's much more difficult than caching pages for anonymous users, where everyone sees the same content. It's easy to prepare that page and just serve it off to a lot of users. We're getting technical here. More questions? Yes. Oh, the argument that it's open source and thus not supported. That I approach it with it's bullshit. The thing with getting service is that you need a service provider, and that's it. When it comes to open source, you will need to find a service provider to give you service on the platform you want to use. When it comes to proprietary software, you buy, well, you rent the software from someone, and that one is your service provider. You don't have any option to stop getting service. You don't have any option to choose another service provider. You're locked in. When it comes to open source, you're free to select your service provider, and you're free to not even have a service provider, if that is what you prefer. But you definitely have service provider, especially when it comes to Drupal. Drupal is a large open source project, and it has a lot of providers. Good question. It makes me agitated. Yeah. Is that it? Let's see. What time is it? Oh, a question. Yeah. If I build a site today, would I do it with 6, 7, or 8? I'd use 7. Any day. Well, any day from now to foreseeable future. Yes. How do you use a framework? Yeah, okay. How do you use a framework? A framework is something that you start off with. It's it's like Lego bricks. You have components, you have some kind of starting point, but it's nothing you can really use. But you can use it to build a car, a house, or whatever suits your needs. That's the framework. It means that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And that's kind of nice. Yeah, was that? Oh, how do I choose framework? What, you mean if I was not to use Drupal? A framework in Drupal. That's an interesting question. How do I choose which framework to use inside Drupal? I've spent a lot of time as a site builder. Now I started coding as well. And I have become very fond of a few modules that are frameworks that can do a gazillion of different things, and they interact with other parts of Drupal and other modules in a very good way. And the more a module or a framework interacts with other parts of Drupal, the better it is, according to me. And that's how I choose my frameworks. The modules I like very much use, the essential modules, according to me, are Page Manager and Panels. Those two modules go together. One module called Views, which you'll probably hear Drupal geeks talk about. It's the most used of all Drupal modules. And then there's a module called Entity Reference and things. But let's stop there. No. The Rules module. The Rules module, of course. Rules, Page Manager, and Views, and you're pretty good off. Good frameworks. I'm gonna check that. Yeah. As a developer, how do you know when to use hook alters and pre-process and different APIs? Well, that's a good question. I was going to say by experience, but I guess that's not a really good answer. Yeah, you can get to the same results in many different ways. No, I don't know. For me, I'm still so new at coding that I don't really know how to explain it. It's some kind of feeling that I can do, well, when it comes to pre-processing, it's a part of the Drupal theming, so if it's theming thing I want to do, then I want to use pre-processing, for example. If I want to make, well, no, I can't explain it in a good way, I'm sorry. Yes? And apply links to it, or migrate. What? Are you talking migration or embedding? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so the question is, if I have a site already in .NET and I want to build another site in Drupal, and I want these kind of to interact with each other, do I have to change the first one to Drupal as well? No, you don't have to do that. There are several different ways of doing it. If you just want to pull content from one site and display it on another site, you can write some things that queries your .NET site and gets information out and shows it in Drupal. If you want to have content actually pushed between the sites, it's a bit more tricky. Like if you want an article to be on both sites and you can update them on any site and it will sync, that's more tricky, but it can be solved as well. It will take a coder to do that, but it's definitely doable. I've seen it done several times. All right, I think that's it. Thank you very much.